Hey film fans, it's the Zachman. Today we're taking a look at a spooky little movie that's been getting a lot of buzz, especially here on YouTube, Shelby Oaks. Shelby Oaks is the directorial debut of well-known YouTube movie critic Chris Stuckmann, who had a big impact on my channel when I was first starting out. Needless to say, seeing his dream of becoming a filmmaker is not only exciting, but also kind of inspiring. Going from a guy in his room ranting about movies to having his name on the big screen is quite the accomplishment any way you slice it, which is why reactions to this movie have been so mixed, especially given the time it's taken to complete development. So, what is Shelby Oaks actually about? Mia is a woman being interviewed by a documentary team about the case of her missing sister, Riley, a paranormal investigator from YouTube who's been missing for years now. A new clue appears to Mia in a disturbing manner, leading her to reopen her own personal investigation, which leads to some sinister discoveries. What works about this movie is the big green checkmark any horror filmmaker should be looking for. It is undeniably creepy. From the found footage from Riley's YouTube videos to visuals in the real world, I felt myself being genuinely unsettled. One shot in particular has a figure appear on a television screen in the reflection of it, and it presented itself so nonchalantly that it was honestly more chilling than if it was brought up like a jump scare, like, "Boo, here it is!" Another big part of what I liked about this movie is how grounded it felt. This is a very haunting story of a woman looking for her long-lost sister. That's tragic in multiple ways, and you can feel how much it means to Mia to get the truth of what happened to her sister. This is bolstered by a fantastic performance by Camille Sullivan, who's carrying this movie on her shoulders. This is the first thing I've seen her in personally, and I really have to give her credit for making me believe this much in her sisterly bond with Riley. An issue for me in lots of horror movies is that we don't really get to care about the characters, or more importantly, the people they care about. And that makes it hard for me personally to get invested in their journey, which thankfully was not the case here. I am also the youngest of three brothers, so any story involving siblings is going to hit a little bit harder for me. Riley's actress, Sarah Dern, also does a really good job in her role as the missing person in question. Her expressions in the footage, from this fearful crying to these zoned out, entranced stares, help feel like you are watching this poor girl descend into madness in real time. Her range is definitely shown best in the third act of this movie, which makes it that much more satisfying, seeing how far she's come, everything she's gone through, to what she ends up becoming. This movie, especially for being originally totally crowdfunded, looks pretty good. Not just the actual camera quality. I was really worried they were going to use that faux documentary camera for the intro that they did, and I'm very glad it wasn't. But a lot of the shots in this movie are super well framed, from having literal door frames or curtains to having evil forces at play be in various corners of the screen, almost forcing viewers to play the world's creepiest game of Where's Waldo, by which I mean as a compliment. So, what didn't work? And why is that important to note here? Well, before stepping into the criticism, it should be noted that Chris himself has come under fire in the last couple of years, as he openly announced he would no longer be doing negative videos, outright not making reviews for movies he didn't enjoy. A sharp turn from a channel whose most popular videos are called Hilariosity, movies so bad that they're hilarious. This did come around the time of early development on Shelby Oaks, which I understand is not a good look for many people. While I can see the safety pad argument, he's getting into making movies and has that new perspective of, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And I think when it comes to art, that is a valid approach to take, but only to an extent. There's a difference between saying, "this was bad," and saying, "this was not for me." The latter I've chosen in my own film discussions, as, especially in recent years, I see films that are so highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic and even Letterboxd that I personally did not enjoy. Even Best Picture winners that I've just kind of shrugged off. But that's also the beautiful thing about art, is that two people can see the same thing, but in very different ways, and one person gets way more out of it than the other one did. A big shout out to a commenter on my Superman ranked video earlier this year that noted I had some issues with sound. He could have easily said something like, "Hey man, sound sucks," and left it at that, which is very common on the internet, especially on YouTube. But instead, he went into great detail onto how to fix this. And hey, if I sound better, I got a new mic. That's what I'm getting at with this idea of film criticism, is it's not necessarily what is being said, it's kind of also how it's being said. So, what didn't work about Shelby Oaks, and why? Well, the movie has a notably uneven structure from the first 15-20 minutes in. I think it's a super bold choice to put opening credits that late in a movie, but it does always make that opening sequence stand out. I don't mind a long opening if there's a lot to be done with that, and for where this movie goes, it does add weight to the emotion of the incredibly important moment that sets the real story into motion. It's a lot of setup, I acknowledge, but I found it actually pretty engaging, and it really got me hooked into the story and excited to see what was to come. It felt like an organic way of saying, hey, here's why you should care about the spooky stuff you're going to see, versus a generic 5-minute introduction to characters that I'm led to believe are changed people by the end of the story, at least of those who survive, despite not really knowing them before they changed in the first place. And it's everything that follows this solid build-up that the movie hits quite a few bumps in the road. Not only is now a good chunk of time taken to re-establish pacing, but it also leaves a lot less room to breathe for the unraveling of the plot itself. Which is strange. This is a 91-minute movie, but if you trimmed some of the very long takes here, I guarantee it could have been 85, 88 tops. I don't say it with full contempt, as I think there are a couple of long shots in this movie that really work. They are very effective. It's just more effective when they're used in the found footage or first person point of view versus the live scenes. I think someone going around the corner in first person is much more petrifying by default because it's right there, it's front and center. But when the same kind of reveal or surprise is shown in third person and you're watching someone else go around the corner, it doesn't have the same effect. It's no longer a hold your breath moment, it's a waiting game. It's like, okay, there's someone around the corner, I know they're gonna see it. It's clear how long Riley has been missing is really taking a toll on Mia, but it almost seems like the series of unwise choices she makes in this movie are just kind of written off like, well, she's sad and crazy, what are you gonna do? I understand the trope in scary movies that a person is more vulnerable, or that's when the worst things happen, like in a slasher movie when someone doesn't suspect the guy coming around the corner with a knife, or in this movie's instance, a supernatural horror, the idea that these evil entities prey most when you're in a vulnerable state. But a movie that does a very similar plotline, Hereditary, gives time for that grief to build. That's almost the full weight of the first act, is the grieving of one character and then something else happens and then it's all kind of blown up, but you feel the weight of that, and these characters are given a proper amount of time to somewhat come back to normalcy, and I don't think that happens in this movie. Speaking of, one thing that a lot of people mention, and you'll see, that also annoyed me, is that Mia gets covered in blood at this one point of the movie and she just doesn't wash it off, which is crazy because even just her washing it away could be this cliche but symbolic idea, again with the missing Riley and something new now, that something's going wrong, she has to get this off her, she has to wash herself of this evil, and it's not there. It's something small that's just not there. It's a very distracting choice. So many movies have these small but important moments of characters just looking at themselves in the mirror, often very beat up, bruised, or bleeding. This is the sort of thing that could also lead to a filmed flashback between Riley and Mia after they're getting out of the pool and washing their hair together, or some other kind of circumstance to help show that every single thought Mia has is about her sister, especially in this moment. Instead, it's just there. on her clothes for this whole night, and at a point of time where she gets a very important piece of evidence, and the next scene it's just gone. Doesn't show her washing it off, doesn't show her fazed by it. Even her husband is just kind of looking at her, doesn't say anything of like, hey, we got a little, nope, it's just there. And the choice just really took me out of pretty vital parts of the movie. I don't know why, personally, that this decision was made. I don't think that there's any more symbolism in that than there would be in something I mentioned earlier. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's okay for a movie to occasionally use cliches or use scenes that are like, oh, I think I know what's going to happen, because these are character moments. You're supposed to make them relatable. You're supposed to make them understandable. I don't relate to this. At least that frame of mind and being that rattled. The weakest part of this movie is easily the script, but mostly how that plays into a lot of underdeveloped themes. Family is, of course, at the center here. Makes sense. Sisterhood. But there's also an ongoing subplot, I guess, if you can call it a subplot, about Mia wanting to be a mother. And on paper, I see why this idea was there, and how that concept of motherhood and having a child of your own comes into play, especially in the third act, and kind of tying back into the idea of family. I just wish there was more discussion of it, or symbolism. It's mentioned like twice, and then not brought up again until the very end of the movie. And without giving anything away, the ending of this movie does kind of deflate. The movie wants to have this sort of last twist at the end, one last surprise, but it feels like an afterthought instead of the actual conclusion of the story. The movie also tries to show us, oh no, yeah, this is always where it was going, while being very on the nose and direct about it, but also not really feeling like it properly built towards it. Again, it's brought up once or twice, but not really a prevalent thing. It feels like Stuckmann wanted to have this deep, dark ending, but without any real payoff, it's just kind of disappointing. The last thing I'll say about this movie is something that worked for and against the movie for me, is that this is shot like an elevated horror movie, something more artsy, your typical A24, and the attempt to tackle themes like grief and losing family and motherhood feels like it wants to be, but the way it plays out is just kind of like a B-movie slasher, regular mystery horror. At least it was visually distinct from a lot of other mainstream horror movies of that subgenre now. I just wish that the writing and the story beats hit that much harder to match that energy and help elevate the whole thing. And yet, even with all that negative talk, that's not to say that this was a wasted experience for me. I drove 30 minutes to the last AMC near me in like a 40-mile radius that was playing Shelby Oaks, as I needed to catch this on the big screen before it left theaters. And oddly enough reminded me of some of Chris's videos that he said he went an hour out of his way or drove so far from his regular movie just to catch this one. And as a fanboy, I think that's why, regardless of the quality of this movie, it's special to me. I got to witness someone's dream come true with my own eyes, and I got to have this full circle moment. I wasn't able to back this movie when it was just a Kickstarter project, but sitting here making a review for it feels like the least I could do. I went from watching this guy make movie reviews to making my own movie reviews to watching his movie and making a review. Like that kind of thing doesn't always just happen. The long and short of it is that, yes, Shelby Oaks is clearly a first movie, but there's also a clear sense of passion for the art of filmmaking, for this craft, and a clear sense of direction that Stuckmann has behind the camera already. Ultimately, it was pretty spooky and inspired me to get more active in my channel and online presence in the film world, and even go back to some old short stories I was working on. So by those merits, I can't help but call this a success. If this gets a wide physical release, which I'm praying it does, I will definitely snag a copy to show friends and highly recommend you do the same. and prove to Hollywood that we want movies made by people like you and me, warts and all, issues or not, instead of this run-of-the-mill franchise extender or generic rehash, you know? The bravest thing you can do is go see an indie movie. Put that on a poster. I want an Uncle Sam edit of me like, I'm not going to do it. That's your job. All my dedicated fans out there. All 130 of you. Thank you so much for watching, and before you head out, make sure to like this video and comment on what you thought of Shelby Oaks, or what you'd like to see from more original horror movies, or movies in general moving forward. If you like what you see here, please click the subscribe button below. It'd be much appreciated. And I will see you next episode. Same Zach time, same Zach channel.